So hey everybody, I am Alexei Card, the founder of Noir and the founder of Noir Academy, way back in the day. And perhaps most known, aside from doing that and yelling at people, is my love for the ponies. And I've come today to talk to you guys about not only My Little Pony, but how the awesomeness and lessons of My Little Pony can actually help you be better at EVE Online, which is a real theory that I have. And actually have quite a bit of support for it. I think you guys will be pleased. Before we get into it, how many of you guys have seen the show or know anything about it?
The show?
The My Little Pony show.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like not many. All right, cool.
Familiar.
So it was originally a little girls show way back in the day, like 70s, 80s, accompanying toy line that's made by Hasbro, the same guys that do Transformers. This is like the female version. It was picked up in recent times by Lauren Faust, who's most known for creating the Powerpuff Girls. And she was charged with basically reinvigorating the whole franchise. And she took a whole new approach to it, really upgraded the animation, the writing, and tried to make it more of a general appeal show rather than a show for little toddler girls. She did a pretty damn good job. So the overall theme, or, stuff of the show is it's focused on Twilight Sparkle and her 6 friends. Twilight Sparkle is an extremely gifted protege in magic. She's the understudy of the ruler of the land, Princess Celestia. She lives in the capital of their nation called Equestria. The capital is called Canterlot. At one point in her studies, she uncovers a prophecy of some doom that's going to happen. But Princess Celestia, instead of telling her to go work on that, tells her instead to move out of Canterlot and go to Ponyville, which is kind of a podunk town. It's a bit of a rural town in Equestria. And she just tells her to go there, work in the library, and make friends. And the show revolves around her and the 5 friends she makes in Ponyville, and the adventures they go on, the life problems they deal with, and the lessons of friendship that they learn or can teach to others. So first... Okay.
Is this literally on ponies, or,
Yes, was that not clear?
I thought it was a joke.
So did I, until Cassidy booked me for a day and time. But here we are.
Okay, go on, sorry.
So the main 6 characters, that's MANE 6, each represent the races of ponies and an aspect of friendship. There's Twilight Sparkle, a unicorn, who represents magic. You've got Rarity, also a unicorn, and she is officially Generosity, but in the original writing, she was Inspiration, which is a better fit for her character, so you can kind of blend those two together. There's Applejack, she's an Earth Pony, and her element is Honesty. Pinkie Pie, Earth Pony, element of Laughter. And you have Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy. They're both Pegasuses, and they're representing loyalty and kindness. When they combine all together, they can harness what's known as the elements of harmony. Effectively, you can think of it as kind of a souped-up Care Bear stare, if you're familiar with Care Bears. Basically, by our powers combined, we will kill whatever the big bad guy is. So about the types of ponies, there are a few. There's Earth Ponies. These are like your standard ponies. They have no special abilities or physical attributes, but they tend to be tougher, stronger, and more streetwise than the other types of ponies. And they're essentially the farmers and laborers of equestrian society. You got the unicorns. They're ponies with horns. They can use magic, which I'll get into in a bit. But not all unicorns have the same proficiency in doing it. Some unicorns are just inherently better at it than others, and some are more educated than others. They're kind of high and mighty. They're Equestria's aristocracy. They tend to be in leadership positions and have better education. They view themselves as more sophisticated than the other races of ponies. And then finally, you got the Pegasus, ponies with wings. They can fly, they can walk on clouds, and they have a deep understanding of how to manipulate the weather. In Equestria, ponies actually manually control the seasons. They're responsible for the weather in Equestria, but they're also the most militaristic and aggressive of the pony races because they come from a strong military tradition. They make up the bulk of the Royal Guard and the Equestrian Air Force. Well, they make up the entirety of the Equestrian Air Force. They're the bulk of the Royal Guard. And then there's a very rare case called the Alicorn. That is a pony that has everything together. Wings and a horn. They can fly. They can use incredibly powerful magic. At least 2 of the ones we know about are immortal. and there are only 5 that we've ever seen. They're incredibly rare. They're essentially equestrian royalty. We're talking about Princess Celestia and Princess Luna, both immortal alicorns which literally raise the sun and the moon. So essentially sun goddess. We don't quite know a lot about alicorns. All we know is that it's the 2 that we know from the start of the series, Celestia and Luna, are immortal and have been there for quite some time, several thousand years. And we know that some ponies that are not alicorns can become alicorns, and we know that some ponies can be born as alicorns. Still a lot that the writers haven't actually put into about that, but we're learning. A little bit about Equestria itself, and this will play into the lessons about Eve later. Equestria was founded by the 3 tribes of ponies coming together after a bitter, I don't want to say race war, but let's just call it racial divide. Basically crippled their previous society. They were starving, under attack from mythical winter spirits that were drawn to the resentment and infighting, basically covering the land in snow and ice and famine. Each tribe's leader set off to find a new land, and though they took different routes, they all found their way to what will become Equestria, but decided to claim it for themselves. The same old fighting broke out, and the same mythical winter spirits, called Wendigos, also came into the new land and started freezing it. It eventually drove all the ponies into a cave, the 3 leaders and their 3 aides. The 3 leaders froze to death arguing, while the 3 aides used their final moments to find common ground and eventually the basis for a friendship. And as their bonds of friendship grew brighter, it actually began to thaw some of the area around them and drove the ice spirits off, which led to the discovery of friendship magic. Again, more about magic later, but in My Little Pony, magic is not a mythical force necessarily. It is a real scientifically observable thing, which we'll get into. So as you might guess from the foundation of their society, their underlying social mores are fundamentally reliant on harmonious and optimized interaction between different groups, in particular groups of specialists in a large system. Each race of pony is specialized and must work together for their society and actual natural processes of the world to function. Likewise, each individual pony is specialized, born with an innate talent that they do better than anyone else, and must discover said talent to actually achieve adulthood and take their place in society. When they realize this talent, they get what's called a Cutie Mark. It is a visual indicator of that pony's talent on their butts. That's the little thing that goes on their hips that you see all around. This is more than just a symbol. It's not a superficial thing. It's actually like the visual embodiment of everything that makes that particular pony unique. There have been cases where it's been removed or altered, and it dramatically affects that pony, and they essentially lose mastery of their talents. They become depressed and unhappy. Because of how the society was founded, their society values very highly cooperation and the giving of one's time and talents. But they do have a very well-developed capitalist system. Everybody works, they have money, they use money to exchange for goods. So they're not a collectivist society by any means. Very capitalist. So it's more of a charitable thing than a socialist thing. So let's get into the magic. It has a lot of parallels to science and math in our world, aside from the thing of like unicorns can do it and they're born with that ability. Take that element out, and it's seen and treated as very mathy and sciencey. The protagonist of the show, Twilight Sparkle, is an extremely skeptical person, very analytical, routinely espouses the scientific method, observation, experimentation, etc., even though she is the most gifted magic user on the entire planet, basically. Spells and the various magical properties that the ponies tend to tap are usually treated as combinations of variables in an equation, and they don't always work out as the user intends, which is a frequent thing that kicks off plots in the show, but they're supposed to have a predictable outcome based on the inputs that you put in. I would draw this Clark's Law, or one of them anyway. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And because friendship is magic, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from friendship. Ponies have they refer to this as magic, but they really treat it as a kind of technology, one which maybe they don't completely understand, but are increasing their mastery of over time. And the magic of friendship is not a metaphor or a euphemism. It is a observable thing that has actual forces and properties that impact the world around it. And by better understanding the magic of friendship and how it affects their world, Twilight Sparkle and the main characters have been able to achieve heroic feats far above their expected abilities. Certainly their lots in life, because most of the ponies are common-born, ordinary people. Any questions about the show itself before we go into how all that shit applies to Eve?
How the fuck do you know all this? Is what I want to know.
I have watched every episode.
This is like when you were a kid or recently?
Recently. This is the show only came out when we were 7 years ago, so like 2010, 2009.
Yeah, because if I was caught watching that shit, I'd be arrested for fucking pedophilia.
Pedophilia, wow. Well, I highly encourage you not to fuck ponies or anyone of the ponies' intended demographic. That would be a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm old school. I watched the 1986 movie.
With the what is it? The Smooze?
The Smooze, yes.
The Smooze. So bad. But it did bring us the Sea Ponies, which will last a lifetime.
Like, I'll watch, like, some cartoons, but, like, Star Wars, but, like, My Little Ponies, that's, yeah.
Well, it's not for everybody, but it is for most people. It's not as girly a title. I think many of the themes are pretty universal, and if you're into something that's more positive and feel good rather than dark and action-packed, it's a good change of pace. I usually enjoy the former, but it's good to have, some positive things, especially if they're done well. And it's like the Captain America of the pony world, the Optimus Prime. It's that beacon of wholesomeness that you need every once in a while to counterbalance the Batmans. Anyway, this is not just theoretical shit. The stuff that I talked about can actually help you do better at Eve and be a better pilot. First is discover your own Cutie Mark, if you will. Specialization. You've probably heard this a million times if you're a new player from older players, but it bears repeating. Specializing will allow you to catch up to older players faster in terms of capabilities. It will make you a more valuable member of a corp more quickly than trying to learn everything at once. I hate people that say, "Oh, I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none." Well, you're practically useless. An Eve is big enough that you don't need to do that. In fact, it's not good for you to do that. It's okay to try everything and figure out what you like, but once you figure out what you like, get good at it. Get better at it than the average dude. And that's when you become valuable to your corp, and you just become a valuable commodity in general. And you'll find that your ability to master that particular talent, or that particular ship, or this particular Eve process makes you the go-to guy for that. If you learn ECM inside and out, you're going to be a better Falcon pilot than some test new bro who was told to get into a Blackbird. You're going to perform better than them on the battlefield. But you should still take the opportunity to learn from others, especially how it would apply to you. So if you are that ECM pilot and you're flying around in a Kitsune or a Falcon, understand how the DPS guys work, understand how the FC thinks. That can make you better at your own job. Never let your focus become so narrow that you can't grow as a player or apply information you observe from others in other contexts to what you're doing now. Learn from other people's examples, learn from other people's talents, and make yourself better. Now, fleet balance. If you think of Earth ponies as tanks and DPS, unicorns as E-War and FCs, and your Pegasus as your fast tackle, your fleet will be most successful when all three groups are healthily represented, they're all communicating, they're all on the same page, and they're all working together for maximum effect. Your tanks and your damage, bringing targets down. Your E-War, helping you win the fight by acting as a force multiplier, disrupting enemy logistics. Your FCs providing sound strategic commands and good target calling. And the ability to say whether you should engage in that fight or not. And your Pegasus, obviously, getting on top of people, holding them down, enabling your DPS to kill them. If these three things are not working together, either by ships putting enough modules in their mid-slots to handle it all, or by specializing it out, which will be better than just being general. And you've got some small group on tackles, some small group on EOR, some small group focusing on damage. A little bit on trying not to micromanage. So when Celestia told Twilight, go to Ponyville, she didn't actually tell her, hey, we need the elements of harmony. Here's how to go get them. Go meet these people, go find them together, and then go defeat Nightmare Moon. She just told Twilight to go to Ponyville and make friends, because Celestia knew, because she was a good teacher and a good leader, that Twilight was capable enough to learn the lessons that she needed to learn, to make the connections she needed to make, to figure things out for herself, and overcome that challenge and discover the elements of harmony on her own through making these friendships with the other ponies. Likewise, you as a leader do not need to walk through your entire team on how to do everything that they're doing. Put trust in your specialists and let them make the best decisions in their area, because they're going to be able to make them faster and better than you can make decisions for them and get them to execute. Again, you have to actually have good specialists in these roles, but as a leader, more of an organization leader, less of an FC, but to an extent an FC. You want to make sure that you're putting the right people in these positions. But if you are, have confidence in that decision and let them do their thing. Provide them guidance, provide them support, provide them direction or an overall goal, but try not to tell them how to do their jobs. A big pet peeve of mine is people bitching about blobs and blue donuts, as if these things just happen spontaneously. Never ever say, oh, you blobbed me, or oh, we would have won if not for the blue donut, unironically. You better be kidding, because otherwise that's total bullshit. Blobs and Eve take incredible effort and skill to maintain, especially at a strategic level. The power of friendship, ironically, is the core explanation behind a lot of Eve's high-level metagame. Who's friends with who trusts who's been in alliance with who's hung out at FanFest together. Those types of things drive more allegiance, conflict, and compromise in Eve than any other element. And, frankly, the ability for you to master that element of friendship, cooperation with people, and maintaining those relationships over time, even if you don't directly have an interest in it, that's super key, because without that, you're never going to be able to build the bonds that you need to compete with the people that do have those skills, because they're the guys with the blobs, and it's not a coincidence. Finally, it's important to know that friends are more important than fun, which is more important than funds, but that funds are still important. Your friendships and fun are more important than any single lost fleet or event. The value of a friendship over time is worth overlooking small failures, especially if your friend or your friendship general grows as a result of those challenges or failures. But that said, money is still a thing, and a true friend never takes advantage of your kindness, generosity, or loyalty and pushes you beyond the ability for you to actually help them out. So, I'm not pushing for collectivism, but, if you can help each other out, do it. But the other end of that is, as a good friend, you never want to push your friend beyond their means because you have that consideration for them. So they're giving freely to you what they can give, and you understand that, and you don't push them beyond that. You respect that, and you repay them in kind. And over time, the two of you working out and helping each other will be more important and valuable to you than any single point of failure in that chain. And finally, the ultimate thing, tying it back to the foundation of Equestria itself. Discord kills you and your crew, but harmony kills your enemies. Internal discord is pretty much actually the only way to definitely kill off an Eve organization. Most fail cascades don't happen because of a loss of money or a loss of fleets or anything like that. Fail cascades happen because people turn on each other within that organization. They lose confidence in leadership. There's fights among the rank and file member, or it's some combination of those things. There could be backstabbing or betrayal, corp sabotage, theft, etc. If those things aren't happening and your alliance is together and on the same page, it doesn't matter how many fleets you lose. You could whelp hundreds of billions of ISK. You will stay together and stay strong. If you prioritize the social bonds, culture, and friendship over short-term success, you will eventually be able to defeat organizations that don't do that. In an even fight for sure, and you'll survive those circumstances which are otherwise insurmountable through direct confrontation. There have been many, many times that the Stain Wagon Coalition, for instance, has been evicted from their space. But very famously, they just go back to Stain, where they can't be evicted, they keep their numbers intact, and as the coalition, the weak coalition that tried to take them out, eventually starts fighting each other, resetting each other, deploying to other parts of space, then they move back out in force and reclaim their ancestral homelands. This has happened at least half a dozen times in the past 10 years, at least. If you keep your culture together, you keep your people together, and the enemy organization does not because they don't really know each other that well or they were only friends of convenience or circumstance, you will be able to outlast them and achieve eventual victory. If you don't do that and your alliance turns on each other while they're being kicked out of their space, then you will collapse and you will disperse, and then you'll be forgotten. You can also look at groups like Goonswarm, Test, and Brave, which maintain this strong cultural bond and have gotten kicked out of many different places. Goonswarm lost World War B, but you wouldn't really know it looking at the map. They have basically taken almost as much space as they had up in the north. Now they're just down in the south, with less allies, stronger cohesion, and a smaller concentration of their super capital forces. And meanwhile, their enemies from World War B are now split over two halves of the map, and no real threat to them at all. Worked out pretty well. So, these are super important things to consider. Don't focus too much on, oh, we lost this citadel, oh, we lost this fleet fight, oh, I can't believe, that we're facing 10,000 people and we're only a 1,000-man alliance. None of that stuff really matters in the long term, as long as you keep everybody together and you maintain those bonds of friendship and culture within your organization. As long as you have that, your alliance is not going to die. And if your enemies don't have that, it's only a matter of time before they do. And then you will have outlasted them and you can go retake whatever you want. And those are the 6 big takeaways you can have from My Little Pony. Any questions?
I think our minds are just blown right now.
Yeah, I bet you didn't think we were going to get where we got at the start of that thing, huh?
Honestly, I think this speech, this discussion, it really should be shared with more people.